Saving money during high inflation is hard. Saving money during high inflation with a low income is harder. But before you make yourself another bowl of oatmeal, I want to tell you that there are better ways for you to save money. This is why we're in this video going to look at different ways for you to save money, even if you have a low income. And the smartest way of doing this is not something like using less toilet paper or stop drinking coffee altogether. Instead, we're going to have a practical approach of doing this by looking at what the biggest costs are for households in the US. We'll start with the biggest one and work our way down so that you can see on the different types of costs how you could lower those expenses. And in the end of the video, I will share one of the best saving tips I've ever heard, and it's applicable to all types of costs. So stick around to the end to hear that tip. So the biggest cost might come as no surprise is housing. 29% of the average household's income goes toward housing, and it is a cost that can be quite hard to decrease. But here are some things you can do to lower your housing costs. Rent out a room. Depending on your housing situation, this can make a lot of sense or no sense at all. If you live in a tiny apartment that makes you claustrophobic, well, this probably won't work for you. But if you instead live in a house and you have a spare room, well, you can earn quite a bit of money on the side just from renting out a room. Look on a site like Airbnb, and you might be surprised over how much people are willing to spend on just having a room to sleep in for one night. It isn't uncommon to see rooms going for $100 a night. And just to be clear, it's not an entire apartment or an entire house, but just one room. The average monthly expenditure for housing is around $1,900. So if you're able to rent out a room for $100 a night and rent it out for 10 days a month, well, then you can halve your housing cost. Check on Airbnb and other sites like it what rooms and houses go for. And as I said, you might be surprised over how much people are willing to spend. Make a deal with your landlord. A lot of times there are minor things you can do for your landlord, and that can save him or her a lot of time. Even more so if you're a bit handy. For example, clean the stairs or fix things that get broken. See if you can make a deal where you do something that makes their lives easier, and in return you get a lower rent. It's at least worth trying. Use less electricity and lower your heating or your cooling. If you're paying for electricity and if you're in control of your thermostat, be aware of how much electricity you're using. In most households, people aren't very deliberate when using their thermostat, but you can save a lot of money by not cranking up or cranking down the AC or your heating system. Number 2 on the list is transportation. And boy, are cars wealth killers in my opinion. The average American household spends $913 every month on transportation alone. If you're looking at where you can save money, this is your golden opportunity. And you might think that a large part of the transportation cost comes from insurance and gas, but more than half of the cost is just the cost for the car itself. So no, the biggest part of the transportation cost comes not from owning the car, but from buying the car. But this is also good to know, because another way of putting it is, if you own a cheap car, your transportation costs will go down drastically. And really, who cares if your car is a bit beat up or a bit old, as long as it takes you to where you need to go. And if you're able, the only thing better than a cheap car is no car at all. But I know this varies a lot from person to person, and a lot of people need their car to get to work or do other things. But at least then buy a cheap car. Number 3 on the list is food. The last couple of years, food prices have increased a lot, so this might be even more important today. And luckily for you, there's an easy way to lower your costs, and it is by not eating out as much. That's not news. I know, but if we actually look at the statistics, a third of food costs for the average household comes from ordering takeaway or eating out. So it doesn't hurt to say it one more time. By instead cooking your own dinner and bringing a lunchbox to work, you can save a lot of money. Plus, you will probably eat healthier if you cook your own food. Another pro tip is when you buy groceries, try to buy foods that are in season. Most vegetables and fruits have growing seasons. Strawberries, for example, grow during the summer and not during the winter. And by following the seasons with what you cook, you can save a lot of money. The reason for this is that there is a supply increase with foods that are in season, and this lowers the price as a consequence. To use our earlier example, strawberries are inexpensive or cheap during the summer and expensive during the winter. In season, off season. The last thing on the list, and this is one of the costliest mistakes I see people make, is to disregard big costs when they are attached to big purchases. Something I like to call relative price bias. Say a couple is looking to buy a house for $500,000. They look, and at last they find a house for the price of $500,000, and they are thrilled. But right before they sign the papers, the owner of the house says that they will probably need to change the roof and that this will cost around $20,000. The couple understands but decides to buy the house anyways. This is relative price bias in action. $20,000 is probably a lot of money for that couple, but $20,000 compared to the house of $500,000, well, then it doesn't sound as much. People do this all the time on different occasions and on different magnitudes. From buying the plus size menu instead of the regular size because, hey, it's only $1 extra, to buy new tires because you've already bought the new car that is expensive, so why not buy new tires as well? This is extremely common and can be extremely costly. So every time you buy something with some sort of attachment or extra cost to it, try to detach that extra cost and look at it from another perspective. Companies use this all the time and they are very aware of this bias. So do not fall for relative price bias. If you would like even more tips on how you can save money, I made a video that should appear right here where I share some more tips, and some of the tips might surprise you.